Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. My name is Nick. Today, as a kid of the 80s, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite hair metal albums. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you click on that link down below. Go check out the Vinyl Den Facebook group. I know I say it every episode, just a cool place to continue the music conversation. There's also a couple other links down there. There's one for the Vinyl Den merch page. We get Vinyl Den t-shirts and sweatshirts on there. There's a link for the Vinyl Den Patreon page. If you want to support the show, it's always greatly appreciated. You can support the show for as little as $1 a month. There's also a couple other links. There's one for the Vinyl Den Spotify and Apple Music playlists, where every week we're just kind of compiling music that we're talking about here on the channel and putting it all on a playlist for everyone to enjoy. So make sure you check all that out. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give the old thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time we release new episodes. So to give a little context to the conversation, I was born in the late 70s, and so in the late or mid 80s to late-ish 80s period, I started kind of forming my own musical interests. Really kind of stopped listening to a lot of the stuff my parents listened to at that time and kind of started forming my own musical interests. And I guess kind of listening to the stuff my parents probably really hated. But so I kind of got into a lot of those like hair metal bands, even though I've always hated the term hair metal or glam metal. I always just call it metal or 80s metal. Because I think hair metal or glam metal, I always thought was kind of used as a pejorative to kind of, to shine a kind of a negative light on a lot of the music in that late 80s period, which, like I said, I've loved for a long time. So I'm going to kind of go through my top like 10 or 11, and I guess it's not really like my top 10 or 11. There's no real order to this. This is just kind of some of my favorite ones from that period. And I'm going to start out with one that was probably one of the biggest albums of the 80s overall. And that was Def Leppard's this is Hysteria by Def Leppard. And the thing I always loved was I think it was Phil Collin, the guitar player for Def Leppard, said in an interview around the time that this was released that the band really wanted to make a hard rock version of Thriller. And they kind of did it on, a certain level with Hysteria, because there was definitely more of a poppier tone to Hysteria over Pyromania or High and Dry or On Through the Night, the earlier Def Leppard albums. But there was, like I said, a little more of a poppier tone, but there was also, it sort of seemed like every song on this album was like a huge single when it was released. So, I think in that respect, they kind of accomplished what they were trying to do. Another album kind of along those same lines. And, this is a band that also was a little bit different with their first album. And then they released this, and that is Slippery When Wet by Bon Jovi. And this was a little bit more of that popular kind of sound. And it really worked with this album. This is an incredible album. I will say that this was, you guys might not know, this is not the original album. This is not the original cover for this album. There's a slightly more, it's not really risque, but it's an album that kind of goes along with it's a cover that goes along with a little bit more of what they wanted the title of the name, or the name of the album to really kind of represent. Slippery When Wet, I believe the story goes, was taken from or is in reference to a strip club that the band was in. So if you are unfamiliar with that the album cover, make sure you go check it out, because this one I've looked up for a long time, but this is the only one I could really track down. But anyway, this is a great album from beginning to end. A bunch of really great big hits on here. Obviously, you Give Love a Bad Name, Living on a Prayer. Everyone knows so many tracks off this album. The next one is an album that I've loved ever since it was released in 1986. I had this on cassette back in the day, and then actually I didn't pick up another copy or really listen to it again until last year, and I kind of fell in love with this album all over again. But that is Night Songs by Cinderella. This is the purple version that they released last year. Just a great album, and I know there's a lot of Cinderella fans out there that, Night Songs is not necessarily their favorite album by this band, but I think this is kind of the most radio-friendly album maybe that they had. It's definitely some big hits on this one, but one that I listen to quite often. speaking of radio-friendly hits, probably not too many albums that were bigger when it was released than the next one, which is Dirty, Rotten, Filthy, Stinking Rich by Warrant. It's a great album, and I think Warrant's one of those bands that kind of got pigeonholed a little bit by their early success. This is a great album. You know, Cherry Pie is also a great album, but I think after Cherry Pie was released, a lot of the mainstream, obviously music kind of changed in the early 90s. And Warrant kind of fell off the map to a lot of people. But if you haven't checked out Warrant's later albums in their career, definitely make sure you go do that, because I think their later career is probably better than even their first two albums. So definitely one of my favorite ones. This is actually original pressing. If you have had issues trying to find a good copy of this, there is a good bootleg out there. I picked up a bootleg off of Rollin' Records website last year and did an A/B comparison to this, and I thought the bootleg sounded just great, but the cover was a little different, but overall, you know, I think it's perfectly fine. Hopefully they will get around to reissuing Dirty, Rotten, Filthy, Stinking Rich. I'd actually love to see them do, and I've talked about it before on the channel, I'd love to see them do a Warrant box set kind of covering their entire career, because that late period from the band, like I said, is an incredible period, but none of that stuff's available on vinyl. So definitely one I'd love to see happen. The next album is one that was absolutely huge when it was originally released in 1987. And it's probably one that, I picked up a used copy of it a couple years back. And I swear, every single time I go to the record store, I see another used copy of it available. So there's definitely tons of copies out there. Like I said, it's a hugely popular album when it was released. But that is Whitesnake's self-titled album. And of course, Here I Go Again was the huge hit off here. But what a lot of people don't know is Here I Go Again, it was actually re-recorded from their album. I don't remember the name of the album. It was released in 82. That's all I remember. Is Saints and Sinners was the name of the album. I don't know why I was drawing a blank there. Saints and Sinners had that song on there, and it was definitely a different kind of vibe to the song, and it had a harder edge when they re-recorded it for the self-titled album. So if you are a fan of this album, a fan of that song, go back and check out that song from Saints and Sinners. Like I said, it's definitely a different song, but this is an album that from beginning to end, even though Here I Go Again was the huge hit that was on this, there was definitely a lot of other tracks on there that, you know, obviously didn't have the commercial success as that track, but I think some of that is not my favorite track on this album. There's some other tracks that maybe the deeper cuts that kind of round out the album and really make it a great album that it is. Well, I've kind of only made it through half of the albums I wanted to talk about today, so I'm going to kind of cut it off right there. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about these albums, some of your favorite hair metal albums, and I'm going to come back tomorrow with part 2 of this and kind of go over the second half of my list. So if you guys enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me the old thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and come back and check out the show again tomorrow. Well, that's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.